God created all of them, and their whole job is to remind us that He did. Their whole job is to use their voices to sing His praises and use their being to glorify Him. I'm always amazed at birds. Good stuff. Well, I wanted to visit with you today and continue the conversation from yesterday about being still. Sometimes we get put in a position in life where we're told to sit. I'd like to start with Scripture today along those lines. 2 Corinthians 12:10 has something to say about the time of life, the season of life that we're living through. Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distresses, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Great verse, right? Well, there's an old preacher who wrote some commentaries years ago named A.B. Simpson. He has an incredible way of words. He doesn't pull any punches, and sometimes he's downright funny in the way he just cuts straight to the point. His comment about this particular scripture says that if it were allowed to speak in the fullness of the original language, in the strength of its original language, it might say something like this: therefore, I take pleasure in being without strength, in insults, in being pinched, in being chased about, in being cooped up in a corner for Christ's sake. For when I am without strength, then I am dynamite. I love the way he takes that back to the fullness of what it said, just looking at the individual words and how they would translate one language to another. And I can't help but be reminded, we are being cooped up for Christ's sake. But I also remember that this is the same guy that repeatedly told us, when I am weak, I am strong. In my weakness, His strength shines through me. He's also the guy that said, I've got a thorn in the flesh. And I've asked the Lord to remove my thorn in the flesh 3 times, but He's told me no. So I will continue. I'll just give Him glory even in that thorn in the flesh. And I have to wonder, have I taken the time to thank God for the thorns in my life? I'm thankful for the roses. I like the pretty stuff, right? But have I taken the time to thank God for the thorns? Wow. For some of you, being cooped up is your thorn in the flesh. But this is a time where God has hemmed us in. Yes, for protection, but also to teach us some things. And we've been asked to sit still. And I don't believe anything that we've been asked to do missed the throne of God. I believe every bit of it came across His throne before it came to us. And so I wanted to tell you this morning when God taught me to sit still. Now, I am about as laid back a fella as you will ever meet. And so sitting still shouldn't be that hard for me. But I find in this time that it kind of is. That being isolated and not needing to be in front of, in close contact, getting hugs from my sweet church members, that's difficult right now. That being cooped in is difficult right now. But I can tell you the strength on which I draw comes from an experience in my life about 15 years ago. You see, for those of you that don't know me, might not know this story. For those of you that do, you'll know it pretty well. But almost 15 years ago, Melanie and I had a baby that was born way too early. She was born 15 weeks early, as a matter of fact. At 24 weeks and 5 days of gestation, she came into this world. She weighed 1 pound and 12 ounces. And when we got her to the neonatal intensive care unit in Shreveport, Louisiana, those doctors told us, if she survives this first 24 hours, we will make a plan for the next 24 hours. And if she survives that 24 hours, We'll make a plan for the next one. She was surviving day by day. And none of my worry, none of my fret, none of my striving did me or anybody else around me any good. And so the only thing that Melanie and I could do in those days was hope for the courage and the faith to sit still. Again, the same scripture, to commit our way to the Lord and let Him act. One night, a few weeks after she was born, I was sitting in her area in the intensive care unit there, in a rocking chair, a whole lot like this one. She was still on the ventilators. They was still having to breathe for her. First 6 weeks, she was that way. When she stopped absorbing oxygen. Don't know why, but she did. And her little pink color faded to a pale blue, and then to a deeper, darker blue, to purple, almost to completely black, as less and less oxygen was in her little body. And the alarms go off, and the nurse comes in and tries to stimulate her a little bit to get her to start to help breathe. And it doesn't work, and so she calls the respiratory therapist, and they jerk the tube off of her mouth and put the bag on her and start squeezing that bag. And in the midst of that chaos, the sweetest, stillest voice came to me in that rocking chair. See, I had been praying that evening that God would have His hands on her, because I knew if His hands were on her, He would be bringing healing to her. And that sweet, still voice whispered to me sitting there, my hands are all over her right now. And in the middle of alarms going off and medical personnel doing their best to make sure that child does not die, I sat there with incredible peace. I sat still with incredible peace. It's a peace that, folks, let me tell you, passes my ability to understand why I had it. Sitting still. Can I encourage you today? Can I encourage you to not only sit still, but thank Him for the time where you sit still? You may think it's a thorn in your flesh and you can't stand it. Thank Him for that thorn, because through it, He's working something in you that on the other side of this will be a weight of glory that nothing else we have been through compares to. Let Him do that in you, and share that with somebody. Pick up the phone today and call somebody, or send them a text message and tell them that you love them and you've been thinking about them and that you're praying for them. Share what God's doing in your life today, just like I've shared with you this morning. I hope you have a great lunch and a great rest of the day. I love you, and I'm praying for you.